Hi guys, so I've been putting this video off and off and off and off and off, but I'm actually going to be doing it. Today I'm going to be talking about my recording process. So that includes the gear that I use to record with, gear being anything physical or hardware wise that I use, or software plugins, as well as going into a sort of overview of my general recording process. It's one of the questions I get asked a lot of, how do I actually go about creating or constructing a song? So I guess sort of maybe touching a little bit on creatively, but sort of from a mechanical viewpoint, how I actually go about and use the gear and the software that I have in order to create a song. So I'm part way into recording a new album, so I guess now's a good time to talk about it as any other time, I guess. So as many of you guys are aware, I record using a home studio setup. I'm sitting at it right now, so this desk is my main workspace for everything I do music related. It's also my main sort of gaming rig, my main video editing rig, my main internet and ship posting rig. So everything I do pretty much happens here. I've been working with a home studio since I started, so that's mainly where my experience lies, and I'm sure that's where a lot of the interest is, as a lot of people want to, be able to do it with the convenience from within their own home. So the main workhorse behind my recording rig is my desktop PC, which is down here somewhere. So I recently put that together. It's a stupidly powerful machine. We'll flash the specs up on the screen. I won't go into any great detail, but it's pretty much an all-in-one sort of recording, gaming, video editing workhorse rig. I've always used Windows, I've always used desktop PCs, used laptops briefly, but moved on to desktop as soon as I could, just because you get more power out of them. So in terms of the reason why I use Windows instead of Mac is just because I game a lot, so I'd like to have everything in the same system. I do use a Mac as well for on the road and for live performances, so it's not as if I'm sort of hell-bent on one or the other. It's just what works the most, what covers the most ground. So our first stop is going to be for recording hardware, and the main driver for all of that is the X2. So everything I do recording-wise for guitar and bass tones comes from this. It's also what I use live as well, so when I play the Tech Fest and when I'll be going to Japan, this will be my main live rig, just because it's all self-contained. You can go directly to front of house for it with it. One thing I will be doing is, after I finish my new album, whenever that is, I will be uploading the patches that I used on it onto AccessStream. So that includes a rhythm patch, a lead patch, and a clean guitar patch, as well as a bass patch. So those will be going online as soon as I finish the album. I also have the MFC 101 MIDI foot controller for the XFX2, which is my main unit live for switching through patches and so on. I don't use pedals, it's all controlled through the XFX Live, so that's what I use. But considering going through MIDI patch changes, automated ones, I kind of don't want to risk it for the Japan tour. Maybe something to think about after I finish. I also use it in the studio a lot, just to quickly switch through patches and turn effects on and off. So let's say I've got a clean patch and I switch on some chorus or turn off some delay or so on. I just use that because it's quicker than using the XFX unit itself or going through Edit. So yeah, I use the foot controller for that. So a real important part of sort of a really effective recording workspace is having good studio monitors. So the ones I use are Yamaha HS8s. Real big fan of them. Got them last 2 years ago, I think. And they're really, really good monitors, really good bass response as well. I generally don't have that much experience with other monitors, so I get some questions asking me, would you prefer this set of monitors and this set of monitors? And my rule of thumb generally is just to answer what I know. So what I do know is that the HS8s are good monitors. I do have a lot of friends that use them as well, so I would highly recommend them. But to be honest, everybody has their preferences when it comes to monitors. The HS8s are mine. So studio monitors, XFX, that's all well and good, but how do I get sounds from the XFX to my PC, and how do I get sounds from my PC out to my studio monitors? So I do that all through an audio interface. So the one I use is a Focusrite 18i8, which was kind of provided by the guys at Focusrite. I previously used the Focusrite 2i4, which I've recently sold to a friend, but that was a long-serving interface. I used it live at Tech Fest as well. So basically what I use the audio interface for is not just as a sort of recording capture device, but sort of an all-round sound card. So this drives all the sound from my PC, so for anything I do basically with a PC, this drives the sound. but I also use it for recording. So my Axe-Fx, I take an output and just directly take the audio from the Axe-Fx into the interface. I prefer not to use the Axe-Fx as its own interface, basically for the reason that I kind of want to sort of have everything controlled with the one interface. So that includes PC audio and stuff, so that's why I have this here. I also have a condenser mic hooked up to this interface, and the extra inputs are for whenever I have friends around and want to jam, I just hook them up to the interface, and it's really useful like that. I also use these live as well, so I don't have any of my Axe-Fx or any other of my live band going through it, but what we do have is the click track gets driven from a laptop through this interface to the drummer, and there's also a feed that goes from the interface to front of house, which has all the backing track information. I do have a lot of layers and so on, so having the backing track is quite important to me live. So here we are in front of my main workspace. This is where I spend the majority of my time when working on music. What I usually do is have a guitar with me, and we'll sit and track with that or write with that as I go. But as you can see here, I have my DAW open. I use Sony Acid Pro 7. Pretty sure I'm one of only 3 or 4 people on the planet who actually use it, but you use what you're comfortable with. And I have my workspace set up so that I have all my sort of audio tracks and MIDI tracks on this screen just because I like having them all there. And it also means that if I want to edit anything MIDI-wise, I can just quickly go into this menu here and edit drums, for instance, which are all in MIDI. So that's this window. On this screen, I have all the faders. I've got any sort of plugins for MIDI, like Superior Drummer up there, and I also have any audio plugins. So that's how I like to have my workspace set up. I like to have everything in its own space. It just makes my workflow a lot sort of simpler and quicker, just to know what everything is. So as I briefly mentioned there, I use Superior Drummer as my drum program. I haven't graduated onto live drums yet, basically because I will often chop and change songs, we'll switch around arrangements sort of on a whim. So I kind of prefer having the flexibility of being able to change the drums as I go. Having live drums means that I'll need a song sort of finished before going to them. I mean, I guess I could do everything in Superior and use it as a demo for a live drummer, but for now this works. So in terms of the sounds I use in Superior, I use a combination of the Metal Machinery expansion, so the majority of kit pieces are the Metal Machinery expansion, with some Avatar kit pieces which I quite like. Previously I was just using the Avatar kit. As for how I write the drums themselves, I get asked, do you use Guitar Pro MIDI exports? Do you use sort of pre-constructed MIDIs? I don't use Guitar Pro to write, so for those of you asking for tabs, that's why there aren't any, because there never is a Guitar Pro version of any of my songs. But anyway, what I usually do is I write directly into the DAW. So I go to my piano roll and I directly write in the hits myself and sort of manipulate velocities manually. The reason I do this is just, again, because my workflow. So what I'd normally do is I'd have my guitar and I'd come up with a riff or some chords, and then from there, before I track, what I do is I write a rudimentary drum part, which has the main parts of the beat, without sort of any complex work, without any fills, without any sort of subtle velocity changes. I track the guitar and the bass and any layers or so on. Then I'd go back and then I'd add in things like fills and any sort of velocity changes and so on. Speaking of guitars, here's one. So this is how I'd normally be at my desk. I'd have a guitar in front of me. And what I'd always do is I have one track that's dedicated to recording. So that will have one recording channel open with an input monitor on, so I can actually hear what I'm playing. So if I wanted to, like, my tuner's on. So if I wanted to hear what I was playing, I'd just have that input track open, have the record button armed, and that means that I can just press the record button at a moment's notice and just go and record anything that comes to mind. Consequence of that is that I generally spend hours noodling instead of recording. Sorry about that. But it sort of helps both ways, so I can sort of sit and come up with riffs and noodle and see if anything interesting comes from that, and then go through the process I talked about previously where I'd write some drums and track to that. It also means that if I have something already done, I can go back to parts. I think, if I feel like something's missing, I can play over a part. I think, do I want to add something here? So for instance, this part. Yeah, I do actually want 32 repeats of the lick. The other part of my recording process is scrapping literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of takes because I didn't like the way that one slide sounded, or there was a little bit of string noise, or my bend was a bit too flat or sharp, or I didn't like the way the take looked at me. The other thing I do a lot of is use other MIDI instruments, so stuff like orchestra and synth. I work in a very similar way that I do with drums. I'd have a MIDI track open and I'd edit directly in the DAW. So I edit things in velocities, note length, and it's all done in the DAW. Again, just for the sole reason that I like to be able to sort of do things quickly, be able to manipulate them on the fly. So that's how I do any synth and MIDI parts. In terms of finding the right sound, generally with the orchestra plugin I use, so I use Garriton Personal Orchestra. I find their sort of stock sounds for strings very good. For orchestra pieces, I just use them pretty much straight up, just slap some reverb on them and they're good to go. In terms of synths, I use a program called Circle 2. And what I do with that is I usually flick through the factory presets until I find something that sounds sort of roughly what I want it to sound like. And then manipulate it, sort of change the waveforms being used, or change the sort of synths, change the effects going on. It has quite a lot of customizability. So I'd manipulate some of those until I really get the synth sound that I want, and I sort of save that as a new patch. So I don't have any circle windows open in this project, but I do have to do some synth recording. So for instance, I'd have something like this. So a combination of like a really sort of paddy synth and some sort of synth line going on with it as well. In terms of general mixing, what I do is something that a lot of people tell you not to do, but what I do is I have a template. So that has some sort of basic guitar tracks, a bass track, and drums with all those sort of external plugins and stuff already sort of pre-set up. So I use that as a starting point for all my mixes. It just means that they're all consistent. So it gives you sort of a quick place to start off, because I'm just generally a very lazy person and I don't like doing work. So I like having that to start off with, and then anything that I add, like strings or extra guitar parts or extra layers or leads, anything I add I can sort of subtly sort of change and adjust the mix to suit that. In terms of mastering, again, I just have a mastering chain set up within my DAW. I have it set up on the track itself, so the master chain will have the series of plugins that I use there, and it's quite demanding on the system. So if you use a laptop or something else like that, it'd be sort of more advisable to bounce or render the track first and then run a master on it. But yeah, what I do is I have the master track there, and I can just turn the plugin sort of on and off to see how it works with the master. That was a whistle-stop tour of my recording setup and my recording workflow. It doesn't cover everything. There's probably a lot more I could talk about, but that's probably enough for this length of video. So if there's anything else you want to know or want to talk about, please feel free to reach out to me on various social media channels. I'm most responsive on Facebook and Twitter, but if you leave YouTube comments as well, I will try to respond to those. Otherwise, hope you guys learned something, and hope you enjoy the new album, which currently still recording, which this is a part of, so you'll hear this track on there. So yeah, see you guys soon. Hopefully I'll see you on the road, and hopefully you enjoy the new album.